Okay, so we're holding on Gemara Nedarim Daf Nun Beis. We're holding the bottom of Nun Aleph Amid Beis. Bit of an exciting shir, Baruch Hashem. We actually have someone live over here listening in. Hopefully that will aid in the clarity b'siyata d'shmaya. We're holding on the bottom of Nun Aleph Amid Beis at the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says Hanoider min ha-cholav. Hanoider min ha-cholav. Cholav meaning milk. Let's not make the mistake. This is not referring to chaylev, as in forbidden fats. It's referring to milk. Hanoider min ha-cholav, you are mutter bikum. You're allowed to eat kum. Now what is kum? Kum is loosely translated or particularly translated as whey. If you look at the Mefarish on the side, the Mefarish teaches us it's nisyoinei dechalva, the stuff that comes out of the milk, which is called whey. And as the Mefarish points out, the kum einoi bechlal chalav. Whey is not milk. And of course, this is the continuation of everything that we've been learning, that Nedarim halach achar b'nei adam, and therefore, Nedarim halach achar b'nei adam, lashem b'nei adam, and that's the reason why when you say milk, you don't mean whey. Rav Yosi Oiser, Rav Yosi comes along and Rav Yosi says it is forbidden. Minakum. If someone makes an neder from kum, from whey, mutter b'chalav, then he's allowed to eat chalav, he's allowed to eat milk. Over here, we don't necessarily have Rav Yosi arguing. However, the Ran on the bottom of the page over here quotes let's get the Ran up, 2 lines from the bottom. The Ram points off that according to the wording of the Mishnah, it sounds like Rav Yosi agrees to this din. However, Bibraisa B'Gemara Polig, that the Rav Yosi even argues in this case. Abba Shaul Omer, says Abba Shaul, Hanoider min hagvina, Aser ba bein melucha utfela. If someone makes a neder from gevina, from cheese, he's forbidden in all types of cheese, salted and unsalted cheese. We continue in the Mishnah that says, Hanoider min ha-basar. What is the status? If someone makes a neder from basar, as we turn over to a bit of a small Amid Aleph, Nambiz Amid Aleph, just anyone who's, is wondering what is this massive Ran. This massive Ran is a very, very famous Ran. This is a Ran in the world of Hisser V'Heter, Min B'minai Batal. This is quite a famous Ran, but we're just going to stick to the text. So, continues the Mishnah on Beis Amid Aleph, that if one is neider from Basar, he's mutter b'roitev u'bekipa. He's allowed to eat the roitev, which that we know simply is the gravy, u'bekipa, which is little bits of meat that as you cook, they fall to the bottom of the pot. Some Erev Shabbos vibes over here with the meat, which I should have apologized in the beginning. I'm sorry, this year is a little bit late. Rav Yehuda Oyser comes along, Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yehuda says, and very important over here, it seems like it's Rav Yehuda, but there's a girsa that changes Rav Yehuda to Rav Yosi. So on this page that I have in front of me, they don't change it, but I'm sure many of the Gemaras that people are following with, you'll see that they change this top line to Rav Yosi. And of course, that makes it a bit easier, as then it's the same continuation of the Mishnah, in that Rav Yosi keeps on being the one that is arguing and forbidding and saying even that which is maybe not the actual word itself is forbidden. So we've had 3 cases in the Mishnah. Chalav, you're allowed to eat away. Chalav, you're allowed to eat the whey you're allowed to eat the milk, and now we continue with the meat that you're allowed to eat the roitev. And Rav Yosi is seemingly arguing in all these cases. Rav Yehuda comes along. Rav Yehuda says, let's bring a raya to the shita of Rav Yosi. Rav Yehuda Ma'isa v'asar aleinu Rav Tarfin. Says Rav Yehuda, there was a story that Rav Tarfin forbade what? The eggs that cook together with the meat, perhaps this is the precursor to some that put the eggs in the cholent, that Rav Yehuda says, like Rav Yosi, that not only is the meat forbidden, but the eggs that cook with the meat, it is forbidden. Amrulai. So they respond back to Rav Yehuda, Kena Davar. It's true that Rav Tarfin held the eggs are forbidden. However, it's not a raya to Rav Yosi. Why not? Ei Mosai, when was that referring to? Bizman she'amar basar zeh alai. When was that referring to? When one said basar zeh alai. When he said this meat is forbidden to me, sha'noider min hadavar, that he makes a neder from an item, v'nis ariv ba'acher, and that item becomes mixed with something else. So therefore, if it gives off taste, asr, it is forbidden. So the Mishnah is speaking out that Rav Tarfon is not a raya. Why? Because he said basar zeh, which of course is at first thought a little bit interesting, because usually basar zeh means particularly this meat, and we're seeing now that when one is particular about the piece of meat, ironically, it makes it more inclusive. Because when I say this meat, so now when this meat is sitting in a pot, the egg has been infected by the meat. The sauce, everything came from this meat, and that's why Rav Tarfon says it's forbidden, but not necessarily would it be a raya to the case of Rav Yosi when he didn't say basar zeh, and rather he just said basar. If you just peek back to the bottom of your Amid Beis and Aleph Amid Beis, what did Rav Yosi say? Hanoider min ha-basar. He didn't, and that was the case Rav Yosi argued, and that's why says the Gemara, Rav Tarfon is not necessarily a raya. This point will be clear as we speak out the last case in the Mishnah. It continues the Mishnah. Hanoider min ha-yayin, motor b'tavshel. Excuse me, if someone makes a neder from wine, mutter b'tavshel sheyesh boy tam yayin. If someone makes a neder from wine, he's allowed to eat a tavshel. He's allowed to eat a cooked dish which has the taste of wine. This, of course, fits with the Tanakama. Perhaps Rav Yosi would argue, but this is going to now bring out the difference between zeh and not. But continues the Mishnah, if he says that this wine is forbidden, and then this wine falls into a dish, and then just like the Mishnah just explained, just like the Amru Loi, they responded to Rav Yehuda and they said Rav Tarfon is not a raya. Similarly says the Mishnah that if this wine is aser and this wine falls into a dish, then what happens is not only this wine. What do you mean? I said this. Because when this wine falls into this wine is infecting the dish, and that's why everything is forbidden. I will point out that some people see that this word zeh is a little bit of a shayla if you're geiris it. We're explaining the Mishnah with the Gersa, which makes it a little bit easier. So we come out that we have a basic machlekes Tanakam and Rav Yosi. When one makes a neder, it doesn't include other items. If I say basar, I say chalav, I say gvina. The Tanakama says only that item is forbidden. Rav Yosi says it includes other items that come from that. The Mishnah said that Rav Tarfon is not a proof, because when we say basar zeh, since basar zeh infects the rest of the item, and by infect I mean the basar zeh, the entity is coming, and the entity is moving, and the entity, is imparting the taste into the item. That's the reason why it's going to be forbidden, according to even the Tanakama. As we turn over to Nebeis and Midbeis, the Gemara begins that in the detail that we spoke out in the beginning of the Mishnah. We spoke out in the Mishnah that Rav Yosi is going to aser even the nisyun ve'dechalva, even the kum, even the way. That when someone makes a neder from chalav, Rav Yosi is going to aser the way as well. Asks the Gemara, v'reminhi, v'reminhu, we'll ask a contradiction. Top line in Beis and Beis, min ha'adashim, Asar b'ashishim, says the Braisa, so makes a neder from lentils. He's forbidden from eating ashishim, honey fried lentils, as Art School so eloquently coins it. V'Rav Yosi matir. Rav Yosi doesn't argue. So seemingly, and this was the Ran, if you remember when we read the Mishnah, the Ran said from the Braisa and the Gemara, it's going to be clear that Rav Yosi holds that the way is forbidden as well. And this is it. Because what do we see? The Gemara is asking that here Rav Yosi is agreed to the Tanakama, whereas in the Mishnah, Rav Yosi seemingly disagreed. Answers the Gemara, Loi kasha. Marki Asrei Umarki Asrei Teretz, which we should be familiar to, similar to what we've had previously, that it depends on the vernacular, the wordage, the way that people spoke in each place. In the place of the Tanakhama, they call milk, milk, and whey, whey. And therefore, when I made a neder from milk, doesn't include whey. No. Why not? Because I don't ever call whey milk and milk whey. The place of Rav Yosi, likumi namikar lekuma dechalva. What do they call kum, whey? Kuma dechalva. They call it the way of the milk. And that is the reason why when one makes a neder from milk, says Rav Yosi, from chalav, the whey will be included. And we conclude with a brisa, not conclude this year, don't get excited, but we conclude this part of the Gemara with a brisa. This brisa is going to be quite repetitious, basically mimicking the din in the Mishnah. Ha-noider min ha-chalav muter bekum. Made a neder from milk, you're allowed to eat whey. Min ha-kom muter b'chalav, from whey you're allowed to eat milk. Min ha-chalav, you made a neder from milk, muter b'gvina, you're allowed to eat cheese. Min ha-gvina muter b'chalav, made a neder from cheese, you're allowed to eat milk. Min ha-right, if you made a neder from sauce, muter b'kipa, you're allowed to eat those shreds of meat. Min ha-kipa, you made a neder from the shreds of meat, muter b'right, you're allowed to have the sauce. Im omar basar zelai. And this really wraps together the whole first part of today's shir. When you say zeh, then what? This is that second part of the Mishnah. Aser boy, ube right by ube kipai. You're also from it, you're also from the right there from the sauce, as well as you're also from the kipa, you're also from the meat shreds. Hanoidir min hayayin, muter b'tavshel. Min an eder from yayin, this is yayin stam. You'll eat the dish yesh by tam yayin that tastes like wine. But amar koinem zeh sheni toyim min aval tavshel. Then im yesh by tam yayin harei zeh aser. And as we said, it's a beautiful chazara of the dinim in the Mishnah. And we continue with the Mishnah about 14 lines down, Nun Beis Amid Beis. Says the Mishnah, Noider min hanavim. If someone makes a neder from grapes, muter b'yayin, you're allowed to have wine. And of course, already from the onset of this Mishnah, we can understand that this is going to now be discussing items that are taitzas, tailadas, births, offshoots, items that come from items. So if I make a neder from the grapes, says the Mishnah, I'm allowed to have the wine. Min ha-zeitim, I made a neder from olives, muter b'shem, I'm allowed to have oil. Amar koinim zeitim v'anavim, elu sheni tayim. So it says I'm making a neder from zeitim and anavim, from olives and grapes, zeh, these olives and grapes that I will not taste, then it's also from them and that which comes from them. And of course, after learning the previous Mishnah and explaining extensively what the zeh means, this is much more palatable to understand as we realize that the zeh means that this entity, and therefore this entity is now that entity. Meaning, if I just say grapes, in the large sense, grapes is not wine. If I say, can you pass me the grapes, and you hand me a bottle of wine, that's a little bit odd. But if I say, I will not eat this grape, and then this grape is squeezed and becomes a bottle of wine, by drinking the wine, I'm eating this grape. Says the Gemara, Ba'i Rami Bar Chama. Ask Rami Bar Chama. Elu Dafka, which is the precise word in the end of the Mishnah? The way I just explained it, I honed in on the elu, similar to the zeh from the previous Mishnah. But the Gemara now asks, which is really the important detail that shows us that not only is the item aser, but also that which comes from the item. Is it the zeh, or is it shayini tayim, or is it the fact that I said that I'm not going to taste any bit of it? So if you're going to tell me that it's due to the word elu, sheni tayim lamali, then why do I have to say sheni tayim? Just say, I'm making a neder from konim zeitim vanavim elu. What's the word sheni tayim going to do for me? So explains the Gemara. Ha-kamash, you know what it's doing for me? That even though I said sheni tayim, I said that I will not taste, still it's bringing out this chiddush. Only if I said elu, then misar v'loy, and now it's beautiful. Because if you did, when you say sheni tayim, maybe someone would think that anything is included to eating. Says the Mishnah, no. Only if you said elu, then everything is included, even that which comes from it. If not, not. Amar Ravos, let's now answer the question, which is the important detail. Tashema, we learned in a brayso, kodim bears elu alai. So it makes a neder from these fruits. Kainim hein lipi, these entities are forbidden to my mouth. What's halacha b'chilufeim b'geduleihem? It's also for that which you exchange this item for, and b'geduleihem, that which grows from the item, but habiyoytzev and mutter, that which comes out of them. So now we have to redefine exactly what we said in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, we said that we're dealing with grapes and anything that comes from grapes. So now we have to be more precise. Excuse me. It's not just anything that comes from grapes. Now we have to be more precise. Is it that which grew from the grape? Is it the grape that's transferred into another entity or not? So says the Brisa, if someone makes a neder from fruit, what's the halacha? If you exchange the fruit, if something grows from the fruit, then it's forbidden. But that which emerges from the fruit is going to be mutter. So what do we see? Even though the case of Rava was kind of appears ha'elu, still it does not answer anything that's yoytze mehen. Again, the case of our Mishnah of zaytim and anavim, and now we want to know what about the wine and olive oil? That's yoytze mehen. The wine, the olive oil comes from them. That's not gidulehem. The bottle of wine doesn't grow from the grape. That's not chilufehem. You're not exchanging the grape for the wine. Rather, it's yoytze mehen. So seemingly we have a raya from this brisa that even though you said elu, the yoytze mehen is not mutter. So seemingly it's the fact that in the Mishnah you said she'eni toyim. Answers the Gemara, hu adin dafilu bi yoytze mehen mas. Really, even if you said yoytze mehen, really, even in the case of Rava, that which yoytze mehen is going to be forbidden. But the Tana is teaching me a bigger chiddush. Meaning, what was the Bryce of Rava? Bryce of Rava said, Aser b'chilufeim u'b'giduleim. From there, we extrapolated that seemingly it's only chilufeim, it's only giduleim. But if it's yotzibem, if it's something comes out of its mutter, says the Gemara, no. In the Bryce of Rava, even that which comes from it really is going to be forbidden. Why did the Bryce say chilufeim and giduleim? To teach us that bigger chiddush. So Tashima, let's try to bring another raya. She'eni oichel, she'eni toyim. If someone says that he will not taste, I will not eat, mutar b'chilufeim and b'geduleim, then you're allowed to eat that which comes from it or that which goes from it. Now we have the opposite diuk. Aser, for that which comes from it is going to be forbidden. So what do we see now? We see he said she'eni toyim, and what's the halacha? The halacha is that yotzibem is going to be aser. So seemingly we have a proof that if we said she'eni toyim, that is the important detail. So in our Mishnah, again, when he said Zaytim v'anavim elu she'eni tayim, which is the important word, seemingly she'eni tayim. Answers the Gemara, no, Raya. This is the same Bryce of Rava. And once you told me that the Reish is not talking about Yotzei, then I'll tell you that the Seifa is the same. So Tashema, the Gemara again tries to bring a proof. Amar Rav Yehuda. What did Rav Yehuda say in our Mishnah? This was the Mishnah that we started off today's shir with. What did Rav Tarfon say? The eggs that cooked with the meat are forbidden. Amrulai. And what did they respond to Rav Yehuda? A Masai. When is this? Bizman sha'amar basar ze'olai. Sha'noidim in adavar v'nisar v'achar v'yishbay b'noisin tam. Harei ze'alser. So says the Gemara, what do we see? We see that what's the important detail as we explained? It's the word zeh. It's the word elu. So we're going to answer our shayla from this Mishnah based on the previous Mishnah. But says the Gemara, not really. What do you mean? Be'elu. We're 6 lines on the bottom of Nun Beis and Beis. Be'elu lo kami bailan. We never had a shayla if one said be'elu. Didafkahu. That for sure be'elu is being specific, that the word elu will tell us that this entity and therefore that which comes from it is forbidden. Ki mi ba'ilan b'she'eni toyim. Meaning, we have to now reorient ourselves. In our Mishnah, the Gemara began and said, is Elu or Sheini Tayim? Which is the important word? The Gemara now is explaining it's not really the Shaila. We knew that Elu was an important word, and we knew that Elu is going to make the determining factor. The question is, what about Sheini Tayim? Is Eini Tayim Dafka or Lav Dafka? So on that detail, says Gemara Tashema, let's bring a proof, and with this we conclude. Dagim she'eni tayim. If someone said, this goes back to the previous Mishnah we saw yesterday, someone says dag or dagim, fish or plural fish, perhaps fish is, she'eni tayim, asr behen, bein gedaylin, bein ketanim. What's he forbidden? Large and small, bein chayim, bein mavushin, cooked or raw or cooked. Umutter. And what's he allowed to eat? Betaris trufa. He's allowed to eat the taris trufa, the chopped up taris, batzir, and the batzir. So what do we see from this? The batzir, we didn't really explain this the other day. Maybe we should have, but Baruch Hashem, we could do it now. The Ran did over there. Batzir means what? The fish brine. Where does the fish brine come from? The fish! So what do we see? This is the case of Yaitse Bahem. And what did he say? He said, Sheini Tayim. He didn't say Elu. So what do we see from this Mishnah? We see that when one says Sheini Tayim as well, that which comes from the entity is forbidden. Amar Rava no raya ukvar yatmehan. Because in that Mishnah you could say that the fish brine really already came out. It's not going to be approved because he doesn't mean that the fish is forbidden and anything that comes from the fish. In that Mishnah, the fish brine might have already come out. So the Gemara is leaving off that we do not have a teret, we do not have a raya, whether the word sheni tayim or dafka or not dafka. We'll pick it up from the Mishnah, b'siyat d'shmaya, in the next shir.